Welcome back to another deck tech video, where I break down a deck and how it works. Today we'll be covering a deck that is super fun to play, but before I do, if you could subscribe, it's free and you can always change your mind later. Now let's get into it. Today we'll be covering Captain Nagathrod. This is a commander that cares about horrors, doing combat damage, and really works with your opponent's graveyards. It's an interesting strategy because you get to benefit off of milling your opponents. I think it's obvious that we're going to have to run horrors for this deck to work, so let's start by covering a couple of the horrors that I think are really cool in this deck. One of my favorite cards in this deck is Nemesis of Reason, and that's not just because of the name, because that is a fantastic name for the card, but it's also because whenever it attacks, defending player mills 10 cards, this is going to give you quite a lot of cards to choose from for your commander's triggers, and if it does damage, that's even more mill that's going to happen. Another one of the amazing horrors in this deck is Hullbreaker Horror. Hullbreaker Horror has two amazing abilities, and that is whenever you cast a spell, you can either return target spell to its owner's hand, or target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. This allows you to really control the flow of the game and put a clamp down on how your opponents play. I also really like Golem Scheming Guide. I think that this card just adds a fun element to the game because it depends on what your opponent guesses, right? If your opponent guesses right, well then you remove Golem from combat. If they guess wrong, you draw a card, and you get it to be unblockable, which means you get them to mill. So it's just a fun element added to the game, and I think it's a really cool card and can be powerful if you get lucky. Another card that I think it's obvious that we should include is Consuming Aberration. This is a horror card, and it will just put in work for this deck. It mills your opponents and makes itself bigger every time you cast a spell. Do I need to say anything more? Another card that I thought would be fun to include is Roaming Throne, and even though this isn't a horror, it allows you to double up triggered abilities for a creature type of your choice, which can be horrors. And so you're going to double all of your horrors triggered abilities. One important horror that you're going to want to double up triggered abilities for is your commander, so I'd say that it's pretty good. Another card that I think will be good in this deck is Unseal the Necropolis. This mills everybody and then allows you to return up to 2 target creatures from your graveyard, which gets your mill, gets your creature graveyard recursion. It's just a good card all around. Another card that I think I have to cover is actually a ramp card. Dimir Keyrune is an interesting card because it can turn into an unblockable horror, which will allow you to guarantee getting mill for your commander and help you find cool things with its trigger. Normally you don't run 3 mana rocks, but I think this deserves to be an exception. A card that I think is going to put in some work with this deck is Endless Evil. This is an enchantment that allows you to copy the enchanted creature at the beginning of your upkeep. The only difference is it's a 1/1. It also allows you to get it back to your hand if the enchanted creature dies and is a horror. This means that basically any creature you put it on, because most of your creatures are horrors, is going to just let it go back to your hand, and it's going to be really hard to deal with for your opponents because they're going to actually have to remove the enchantment itself. The last thing I wanted to mention is some of the removal cards in this deck. The two I wanted to mention to give you an idea of the kinds of cards to look for are Ravenous Chupacabra and Grisly Spectacle. Ravenous Chupacabra is essentially a horror with a removal spell glued to it, and Grisly Spectacle is literally just a removal spell that also mills your opponents, and that'll help your commander find something good and just give you that little bit of extra value. And so those are the kinds of removal cards you want to look for, because they're going to synergize with your deck and your commander all together. And I think that should be all you need to know to build this deck. As always, there's a full deck list in the description. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like, and for more Magic content, subscribe. That's all. Until next time, whether on this plane or another, have a wonderful day.